Turkey is trapped in a geographical vice that silently throttles its strategic ambitions and economic stability. Its position at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, once a bridge, is now a cage surrounded by hostile neighbors, unforgiving terrain, and critical choke points easily blockaded. In this video, we unravel the brutal geographic realities that doom Turkey to perpetual strategic vulnerability. We'll explore natural borders that hinder defense, economic corridors that can be severed, and the mountain ranges that isolate its heartland. If you think Turkey's leadership or regional politics are the only problem, think again. Geography itself has plotted a path that may lead to its collapse. Stay with me as we dissect each element with maps in hand, strategic choke points, resource distribution, and economic corridors, showing why Turkey's geography is its greatest enemy. Turkey lies at a strategic nexus between Asia and Europe, bordered by 8 countries and surrounded by seas that isolate and restrict. If we zoom in here on the map, notice how Turkey's land is almost peninsular, bordered by the Black Sea to the north, the Mediterranean to the south, and the Aegean Sea to the west. This bridge geography is a double-edged sword. While it controls vital maritime routes like the Bosporus and Dardanelles, it also creates natural bottlenecks that foreign powers can exploit. The country's eastern borders are mountainous and hard to defend, creating natural corridors for incursions, particularly from the Caucasus and Iran. The hostile neighbors Turkey faces, Greece to the west, Armenia, Syria, and Iraq to the east and south, compound this vulnerability. The strategic geography effectively traps Turkey inside a cage, surrounded by adversaries who hold key choke points and can isolate it diplomatically and militarily. This chapter unpacks how Turkey's unique but precarious geography is the skeleton of all its strategic dilemmas. Let's focus now on Turkey's eastern and southeastern mountain ranges. If we zoom in here on the Taurus and Pontic mountains, you'll see they form formidable barriers that isolate the interior Anatolian plateau from neighboring regions. At first glance, these ranges might look like defensive shields, but they actually complicate Turkey's strategic mobility and logistic supply lines. The rugged terrain restricts rapid troop movements and makes border monitoring nearly impossible over the long stretches. Key passes like the Zagana and Kop mountains become choke points vulnerable to blockades or insurgent control. Economically, these mountains impede inland trade, concentrating transport to limited corridors that are easily targeted in conflict scenarios. Strategically, the mountains separate Turkey's naval coastal power bases from its eastern border forces, forcing reliance on vulnerable highways and railways. This chapter dives into how these natural walls function as both guards and cages, limiting Turkey's operational flexibility amid regional hostility. The Bosporus and Dardanelles Straits define Turkey's strategic maritime power. If we zoom in here on these narrow waterways, you can see how they serve as the gateway between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Control of these straits grants Turkey considerable leverage over naval and energy traffic. However, that control also represents a vulnerability. In the event of war, those straits can be blockaded or heavily monitored by rival powers such as Russia or NATO members. The Montreux Convention governs passage, but offers no guarantee during military conflict. Economic lifelines rely heavily on these straits for oil, gas, and trade routes. If Turkey loses control or if choke points are compromised, its economy and military resupply will be choked off. This chapter explores both the strategic advantage and the inherent risk embodied in these maritime choke points. Turkey's economy critically depends on narrow land corridors for trade and energy transit. If we zoom in here along the critical routes from the port city of Mersin through to Ankara and Istanbul, you'll notice these choke points funnel nearly all overland goods. Eastern Turkey's limited infrastructure further constrains resource flow from energy-rich neighbors like Iran and Iraq. Domestically, Turkey's resource base is limited. Energy imports cover more than 70% of consumption. Geographic isolation from European gas pipelines means Turkey relies heavily on transiting pipelines through hostile or unstable neighbors. Any disruption in these corridors, whether from geopolitical tensions, sabotage, or infrastructure failure, could stall Turkey's economy. The geographic bottlenecks effectively make the country's economic lifelines fragile. This chapter analyzes the economic risks rooted in geography,